Hi everyone, my name is Carla Reale and I'm a research fellow at University of Genoa. First of all, let me say that I'm very grateful to Diritti Comparati blog for the opportunity of presenting my book, which is called Invisible Bodies, Sexuality, Disability, and Fundamental Rights, and was published in the end of 2022 by Editoriale Scientifica within the collana della Facoltà di Giurisprudenza of University of Trento. This book, this research, it's an attempt, I would say, to start a discussion around ableism and its impact on sexuality, and an attempt to understand what law can do about it and if law should do something about it. Examining sexuality and disability through the category of fundamental rights implies the recognition of sexuality as a relevant element of humanity, as a space for personal growth, which is, as I argue in this book, which should be defined by the principle of equality, self-determination, but also the promotion of the well-being of the person. Investigating sexuality and disability from a fundamental right perspective means also investigating the last frontier of positive measure and unmasking the supposed neutrality of the law in front of situation of injustice. It means, in the end, which is one of the main purposes of this book, launching a call to action. So, what are the main research questions that gave life to this work? The main research questions are four, probably. The first one is, what is the relationship between the social theory around disability and law? How can law implement this model in order to address the needs and grant the respect of the rights of people with disability? Then, what are the main legally relevant discrimination affecting people with disability in the field of sexuality? Does law have a role in perpetuating stereotypes, misconception, and discrimination against people with disability in this field? Is it possible for the state to implement measures to affirm the sexuality of people with disability? Is there already any country which has adopted legislation or policies or positive measure in general to encourage the self-determination of people with disabilities in the sexual spheres? Then one of the questions is, what kind of instrument is sexual assistance, which is widely discussed when talking about sexuality and disability? Is sexual assistance regulated by law or by other legally binding instrument in any country in Europe? What is the relationship with the regulation of sex work? In the end, the last question would be, is there any proposal to regulate sexual assistance in Italy? And how are these proposals articulated? Again, what's their relationship with the law on prostitution, the so-called Merlin law? And would that be compatible with the Constitution? And if not, is there a way to frame sexual assistance in order to make it compatible with our constitutional system? In order to answer this question, I mainly adopted the perspective of fundamental rights and constitutional law. That's because disability is a material but also identity-related factor that calls into question fundamental rights such as equality, equity, health, self-determination, participation in public life. So this can be a testing ground for the effectiveness of fundamental rights, but also for the ability of a legal system to respond to challenges and needs arising from social issues. So this work will often use the Italian constitution as a compass without forgetting the fundamental contribution coming in this field from international law. Of course, this analysis will always be enriched by comparative law, especially in some specific chapters. More broadly, the research adopts an interdisciplinary approach because it starts from the assumption that law is inevitably connected to social phenomena, and at the same time, law itself is a social phenomenon. Nonetheless, disability is a variable of the human condition that can be questioned from multiple perspectives and angles, and sexuality is no less nuanced. So in order to understand and handle this complexity, the legal analysis must be enriched with perspective coming from other social sciences, such as sociology, but also political theory. This will help uncovering the hidden assumption behind the law and legislation, and also addressing the power relations and assuming a critical perspective on the production of legislation and legal knowledge. The book is divided in 5 different chapters. The first one outlines the general framework on disability and law and investigates the evolution of the social understanding of disability and whether law and the production of legislation have been contaminated by it. And this will be done by analyzing the Italian legislative framework, but also the international level. Chapter 2 starts to address more properly the issue of sexuality and disability by discussing how stereotypes and misconception might influence law and legislation in this field. And some example coming from the United Nations system, but also from Italy, will be discussed. Chapter 3 will discuss some issues such as criminal law provision around the expression of sexuality for people with intellectual disability from the perspective of Irish legal system, but also the issue of forced sterilization from many comparative case law. In the end, chapter 4 and 5 will discuss the instrument of sexual assistance. Chapter 4 is a comparative law analysis of 2 existing models in Europe. On the one hand, we have Spain, France, and Sweden, and on the other hand, we have Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, and Denmark, while chapter 5 will be dedicated to the discussion of sexual assistance in Italy, with the experience of the Love Giver Committee and the existing proposal, while outlining an alternative proposal compatible with the constitutional and legislative framework on prostitution. The concluding remarks of the study will be aimed at highlighting some transversal point that might guide any further intervention in the field of sexuality and disability. But more importantly, the book closes with some thoughts on the role of the law as an actor of social change. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I managed to tickle your curiosity. The book is available online, open access, so please have a look at it and get in touch. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Bye.